Now we set up provider. So I'm going to boot up a new Flutter project. Make sure the option is Flutter, and then the path to the Flutter SDK is accurate. And then next, I am going to call it provider hub. And here, my website in reverse. And then we're not building for Windows, web, nor Mac OS, nor Linux, so we're good with this too. Then I'm going to create, and then this boot up a new Flutter project as before. So we need to install the provider library in our dependencies. So I'm going to go to here. So this is pub.dev. So what I'm saying is you can do pub.dev, and here we can search for provider. So this is provider. We click this, and then we want to install provider. So here we do. Remember what we said about provider? It's a wrapper around inherited widgets. So to make them easier to use and more reusable, by using provider instead of manually writing inherited widget, we get simplified allocation and disposal of resources, lazy loading, and vastly reduced boilerplate over making a new class every time. So this just sort of like it gives us less boilerplate code to work with. So I'm going to go to installing here, and then there are two options. We can either copy this, paste in a terminal, or copy this and paste in our popspec.yaml file. But I'm going to go with this option. So I'm going to copy, and then here I'm going to open terminal, and then I'm going to paste this and then press enter. And this is going to install the provider package for us. So we need to check whether this works. So we need to do something simple. So let's go to example, and then I think they have a re-implementation of the default counter app with provider. So I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to go to Android Studio, library folder, main.dat. I'm going to just replace everything here with their own re-implementation. So there are a couple of things we can adjust here. In our entry point, the main method, inside the run app, see they're doing multi-provider, but then this is just a small app. We're only passing a single provider here, which is a chain notifier provider. So this chain notifier provider, this contains all the boilerplate code that we could have written inside our inherited widgets class, like we did in the previous tutorial. So with this chain notifier provider, we don't have to write all of those boilerplate code anymore. So this sort of like simplify our program now. So we only have a single provider here, which is chain notifier provider. So I'm just going to cut this and then remove this multi-provider since we don't need it. Then I'm going to paste this back. So we need our top level components, which is my app. So const my app. So we need to pass that here. So this should work as before. Now this chain notifier provider takes the type of our provider class counter. So it takes the type here in this triangular bracket, and it returns an instance of that class here in its create property. So, but then if we didn't include this, it's still going to work. So that's just for explanation. And then this is our class counter class with chain notifier, and then there's this diagnosticable tree mixing. This is just for debugging. You don't need to worry yourself with this. This change notifier, what it does is it's a mixing in Flutter that provides a lightweight tool to track data changes and notify our user interface to updates. So this works along with notify listeners. So instead of writing set states, we're using notify listeners here. So this notify Flutter that our widget needs to rebuild whenever our state property changes. So let's go down. I'm going to be consuming this count property in our widget tree. So this is using the whole paradigm. So we can do super dot key here, and then this goes. Thing still works. So inside our material hub, my home page, I think we've done much of this. So I'm just going to speed things up from here. Super dot key, and then this has to go. That's the whole code. And then here we're passing count widget inside our column widget. So here in onPress property, we have context of read, the counter type provider, and then the increment method there. So for context.read, what it does is it's used to access. Now this new paradigm, this context.read, context.watch, they're syntactic sugar, and then replacement for the whole provider.of type context paradigm. So this gives us less boilerplate for tracking data changes. So for the context.read, what it does is we use this to access methods inside callbacks. So this onPress property, we're using context.read. So this is not going to rebuild our widgets, but then there is context.watch, which is going to rebuild our widget. What is this? This, okay. So this is going to track, it's going to read values inside our build method, and then it's going to trigger rebuild whenever there is any changes to the property. So this super dot key. Okay, so let's I'm going to open Pixel 8 or emulator, and then when it's open, I'm going to select it here, and then I'm going to run this, and then it's going to download Gradle for us, which is our build tool, and then it's going to build our application. It's going to take a minute, so exercise patience. Okay, so our application is ready. So this is working. Okay, so let's go back to our code. I'm going to try to re-implement this using the whole paradigm. I think I've started it here, and then if we go down to my home page, we have context.read and then .increment. So the old way of doing this is to do yeah, we can do provider dot of, and then our provider class counter, and then here we have a context. Then listen is going to be equals to first, so this is not going to trigger a rebuild, and then we have the increment method here. So this is what we get, and then down here we are watching for this counter property. So inside our build method, we can do find our data, and then here we can do provider dot of dot of context. uh, Let me specify the type here, which is counter, and then here we can pass the second argument here. Listen is true, but then this is true by default, so we don't need to include it. Just do this, and then inside here we can do, instead of context.watch, we can do data.count now. So this is the whole paradigm, whole way of doing it. Data.count, and then let's run this. So it's restarted, so it's working as before. So guys, that's all. When we return, we're going to build another application to further demonstrate provider.